when we are out there in the dark. We'll dream about the sun. In the dark we'll seek the light, warms our hearts, everyone. If we hold on together, I know our dreams will never die. Dreams see us through to forever. As high as souls will fly, the clouds roll by for you and I. Hi everyone, Jennifer here, back with another edition of TV Talk. It's Monday, and that means it's Gargoyles Day. And this week's episode was A Long Way Till Morning, or Long Way Till Morning, or The Long Way Till Morning, however you want to pronounce that. Hudson has dreams about the time the Archmage attacks Prince Malcolm, Catherine's father, many, many centuries ago back in Scotland. Meanwhile, Demona attacks and seemingly poisons Elisa with a dart, telling her that she'll be dead in 24 hours unless Goliath meets her at an old opera house to get the antidote. Despite the fact that Elisa is fine, Goliath still goes to the opera house, bringing Hudson with him, knowing that he can't let Demona know that Elisa is fine. And it is there that Demona springs her trap and that Hudson is forced to step up to protect his leader. Okay, things I liked about this episode. We get backstory on Hudson, Goliath, and Demona. This episode basically revolved around the three of them, and we are jumping back and forth between present time and centuries ago when they were in Scotland living at Castle Wyvern. Now, what I mean by we get backstory is that this basically shows us how Goliath became the leader of the clan. We are also introduced to the character of the Archmage, and he will become very important later on in the series, in Season 2 actually, but we will talk about that when we get to it. We also learned that Hudson was once the leader of the clan. He was actually the leader before Goliath. Now, this is very important because up until this point in time, they make no reference to Hudson actually being leader before Goliath. We know that Goliath looks to Hudson for advice and seeks his counsel quite often, actually, but up until I saw this episode, I, and like probably many viewers who watch Gargoyles probably originally thought was that this was due to the fact that Hudson is the only elderly gargoyle we really ever see in this series. We might see some more later on, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So it is entirely possible, up to that point, I assumed that the reason why Goliath looked to Hudson for advice and counsel and whatnot was because he was an elderly gargoyle. He had lived a long time, survived many, many battles, and had the experience not only in how to fight, but when to fight. And that is one of the reasons why I thought there was that, for lack of a better word, relationship between the two of them. Now, I'm not saying that that isn't part of the reason, but another part of the reason why it's there is also because Hudson was the leader before Goliath, and he actually turned leadership over to Goliath, and Goliath still looks to him for advice and counsel on being a leader. He's smart enough to know that just because he's the leader doesn't mean he knows everything. And he looks to the person who held the position before him for advice and help when he needs to. We also learn how Hudson gets the scar on his one eye. It's not fairly important, but it's an interesting development. And we also learn how Hudson is viewed, how he is viewed very differently by Goliath as opposed to how he is viewed by Demona. Goliath sees him as a friend, a confidant, someone who he can rely on to watch his back in battle and to help protect the clan and their home and whatnot. Demona sees him as someone who is old, past his prime, and has nothing of use to contribute to the clan. But it is fairly obvious very early on in this episode that Hudson still has a lot to contribute to the clan. He may not be as strong as Goliath. He may not be as young as the trio or as quick with his reflexes as the other four are, or five if you want to include Bronx in the mix. But he has something the others don't, and that is experience, number one. Number two, he has wisdom. He knows a lot of things, and he is able to pass it on to the others, and he does. We've seen on numerous occasions where he does this, and he's also learned a thing or two in his lifetime, and it's something that not just gargoyles learn, but everyone learns as they get older. And one of the key things is patience. Now, when we're young, and I am guilty of this myself, we can get very impatient. We want to get things done quickly. And Demona definitely displays that in this episode. She wants to finish this off very quickly, and she doesn't have any patience to wait for for anything. Hudson knows to wait, and we see him doing this throughout a good chunk of the episode. No spoilers, but basically he knows the sunrise is not long off, and Goliath, who has been injured by Demona, will be fine once the sun sets the following evening. Hudson also knows that all he has to do is wait for sunrise, and he and Goliath will be fine. So we see him throughout most of the episode basically stalling Demona, holding her off, keeping her at bay, putting distance between himself and Goliath and her. And it may look like he's running away from her, but he's not. He's just stalling. He's being patient. He's waiting for sunrise, which is something he's learned to do. And I hope that wasn't too much of a spoiler for you guys. I don't think it is, because it's kind of mentioned fairly early on in the episode. But if you guys consider it a spoiler, I'm sorry. And that is something that I believe that elderly people learn. They learn patience. They learn slow down, wait. We'll get there. We'll get there soon enough. We don't need to rush. And it is something that younger people still have to learn. Younger people want things done quickly because we are impatient. I admit it, there are times I'm impatient. But there is something to be said to waiting for things. The old the old saying, all good things come to those who wait, is actually a good thing. If you wait, if you're working towards a goal, you'll get there if you're patient. You don't always need the quick fix. Okay, things I didn't like about this episode. Really, there was nothing I didn't like about this episode. I absolutely love this episode. This was one of my favorite episodes out of the whole series. And another one of the things that I really, really liked about this episode that I did not mention on the last page was that this was basically an episode that, even though it did revolve around Goliath and Demona as well, it was, or at least in my opinion, its primary focus was on Hudson. He does not get a lot of episodes where he is the primary focus. I think he's only got like 4, maybe 5 episodes where he is the focal point of the episode. And I honestly think that, number one, that he deserved more episodes that where he was the focal point of, not just the 4 or 5 that he was. I feel that since he is the elderly character in the episode, he has a lot to teach the audience because he does have experience. But number 2, Hudson is also one of my favorite characters. We don't see him, I mean, we see him, but we don't see him very much in the episodes. It's very rare for him to leave wherever they are. Because he is older, he prefers to actually stay at their home and protect their home and let the younger ones go out and do a lot of the heavy lifting, because he knows he's incapable of doing that. He's not as strong or as young as he once was. And he's letting the younger generation kind of do that while he stays back and protects the home, stays with Bronx and whatnot. Just like it's, but again, I like Hudson as a character. He is like the, wise old grandfather of the group. Basically, he is always there to, number one, teach them something. Even Goliath, he is still teaching Goliath things, and Goliath is full grown. He teaches Elisa stuff. He teaches some of the other humans that they become friends with later on down the line. Yes, there will be other humans they become friends with. He teaches them things. And he even teaches his enemies things. I mean, in this episode, he taught Demona at least one lesson. I don't know if she actually took it to heart, but she did kind of learn something from him. And in a later episode, he's basically going to, for lack of a better choice of words, going to give Xanatos some food for thought. But we'll get to that later on when we get to that episode. So again, yeah, I love this episode. This was basically Hudson's very first episode that, I don't want to say it was all about him, but he was, for the most part, one of the central figures. He was the one who I think the episode was basically written for, basically. I mean, if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I feel that this episode was tailor-written for him, just basically based on what was going on. So I did love that. And again, I know this is the things I didn't like slide, but really, I had nothing I didn't like about this episode to state on that. So moving on. Okay, feel free to leave your comments and questions in the comment section. I do love to read those. Please like and share if you're watching on Facebook, or like and subscribe if you haven't already, if you're watching on YouTube. And feel free to follow me on Wattpad, Tumblr, Instagram, Twitter, and DeviantArt. I do have my names for those 5 sites up on the screen, as well as the pictures I use for the icons. Please note that all pictures seen within this video do belong to their respected artists. I own absolutely nothing. The links for the 5 sites I mentioned will be in the description section, if that makes it any easier for you guys to find my pages on those sites. And if you're watching on Facebook, the link for my YouTube channel is in the description section. If you are watching on YouTube, the link for my Facebook page is in the description section. Okay, quick reminder on my comment rules. Okay, feel free to check out my other Gargoyles TV talk videos. My other TV talk videos. And my other videos. Okay, before I sign off, a couple of things I'd like to touch on. First off, and this is for my YouTube subscribers, any of my videos that cannot be found on YouTube are on my Facebook page. Again, the link is in the description section. And this is for my Facebook friends. Any of my videos that are not on Facebook are on my YouTube channel. Again, the link is in the description section. As always, thank you for watching, and have a very nice day.